So, this is the second in the series on the biomechanics of golf. And in part one, we talked in detail about my old boss and mentor, Alex Hay, and his book, The Mechanics of Golf. And we also explained that he was inspired by the great artist Anthony Ravielli, and Ravielli illustrated Ben Hogan's book that was first published in 1957. But the line drawings are critical. Now the thing also, as Alex's book is around 130 pages long, and so is the Modern Fundamentals of Golf written by Ben Hogan. And what is fascinating, in both books, 25% of the book is taken up on the grip. Quite remarkable, isn't it? That you can spend a quarter of a book on just how you hold the club. But it was important to Alex, it was important to Ben Hogan, and it must be important to you and me. So in this particular section, I'm going to talk to you in detail about the grip. Now, it's vital that when I talk to you in detail about something, you think about it on the practice ground and at home. When you go to the golf course, hopefully it's dialed in, you're not having to worry about it. Okay, so there we go. We're going to look at the grip and Alex's two drawings. So in both cases, he's drawn the left hand, and this is a short left thumb, and this is a long left thumb. And when these two hands come together, that is what we call a perfect or neutral grip biomechanically. Now, it's important to understand that there are optimums in biomechanical terms, but it doesn't mean that you're bound to have to use them. Often they're just a reference point. But if we know where the biomechanical optimum is, we can go to either side of it, above or below it, in safety. So some of us have what's called a strong or a hooky grip, some have a weak or fadey grip, and you'll play around it. What I want to emphasize is that the ideal grip is biomechanically sound, because that's the shape of the human body, and particularly in regards to the structure of the club as well. So let's go onto the practice ground or onto the practice fairway and start to talk to you in detail about the grip. To refresh your mind, this is lesson 2 dealing with the grip, but that was based upon lesson 1, which is the posture. So we've talked already about the body being the axle of the human wheel, and my arms hang against my thighs. Now, I can't bring my hands together because my body's in the way. So if I flex my knees a couple of inches and tip from the hip to build the grip, then my arms are allowed to swing clear of my body. And you'll find that with the driver, your arms will come to here, 6-iron, and then wedge. But essentially the arms are hanging downwards. Now, again, if you look at the hands, they hang at 45 degrees in. They're not parallel. They're not what we call square to the target line. They naturally hang inwards. I've heard people say that the grip is like a butterfly, and I don't think that's quite right. I understand the point. They've picked up on the fact that the hands are 90 degrees to each other. But to play golf, we need the palms facing each other. So if I put my palms on out of my thighs, take my posture, and then lean, you're now seeing the hands as they should be. So if I take a large book, it would have to be Ben Hogan, of course, Ben Hogan's life story. I'm going to hold the book between my palms. So you see, I don't actually, that's not the way my hands hang there, okay? So when I come together, now the book is a right angle to the target line. If I turn sideways, you can see it, okay? So that's the first principle. Good posture allows the arms to hang, but the palms come together. If I stand up in front of you, you can see that the book is vertical. I turn my shoulders to 90 degrees and back for 180. That gives me half a swing. But the book can rotate through 90 degrees, and that gives me a 3/4 swing, backwards and forwards. So at a very early stage, we're starting to appreciate that the posture affects the arms, and the arms and the hands can only grip the club properly if that posture is correct in the first place. You can't have good grip without good posture, and you certainly can't have good posture unless you have a good grip. They're absolutely interrelated. If you get one wrong, you damage the other. So get the two together, don't separate them, don't think of them as separate, don't teach them as separate things. Grip and posture are intricately linked, and they should be one and the same thing, all part of the same discipline. So it's interesting to note that golf club handles are thinner at the bottom and thicker at the top due to the taper of the shaft, but it also makes sense biomechanically. So I'm going to just talk to you about the left hand first of all, and I'm going to turn my hand to golfing neutral. Now, if I've put the club behind the ball and I tip from the hip, when the left hand swings onto the shaft, you'll know that the left thumb is parallel to the shaft to the right of centre. Now that's not my bright idea. I didn't just wake up one night thinking, well, that's a good idea, let's teach it. I'm teaching something that is based upon the biomechanics of the body. We've turned our palms to square or parallel in golfing terms, and you can see that the left hand swings onto the golf club thus. The great Australian golfer Steve Elkington said if he'd have cosmetic surgery, he would have his thumbs stitched to his index fingers. Well, that's a bit drastic for Steve, but I know what he's saying. If we stitch the thumbs to the index finger, then we're going to get what's called a parallel left thumb, and the first part of the index finger is also going to be parallel to the shaft. So there's the left thumb parallel, but distinctly right of centre. Please do not think that I'm saying the thumb is dead centre. It's not. The thumb is to the right of centre for a right-handed golfer. Now the beauty of this biomechanically is, if I turn sideways to you, the club is flowing out of the forearm at the correct angle. Can you imagine if my thumb were long, the shaft would be pointing at a ball 2 foot in the air? I'm not made with my thumb out there, I'm made with my thumb hanging. So the club runs across the hand, okay? It doesn't go across the fingers. Holding the club in the fingers of the left hand is quite disastrous. You will always mess up that angle and end up with a long thumb. So, if the grip is good in the left thumb, the right hand fits it rather beautifully. Again, biomechanically fascinating, the curve of the left thumb is designed to fit the curve of the right palm. So our left hand and our right hand dovetails together. Now if we use all 10 fingers, we've got the baseball grip. We can overlap the little finger and go overlapping, or we can interlock. But from the top, you're going to have a biomechanically neutral grip. The structure of the forearms and wrist doesn't change. From baseball to overlap to interlock, structurally from face on, you're going to see the same relationship. The beauty of having the left thumb parallel is it will hinge to 90 degrees, but it will hinge in plane. If the thumb is diagonal in this sense, you'll hinge across the plane. If your left thumb is diagonal in that sense, you'll hinge over the plane. So biomechanically, if the left thumb is parallel and in the pad, you hinge to 90 and you hinge in plane. In the next section, we're going to look at the individual roles of the hands before they become a unit.